Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, go ahead and dim the lights, put your phone somewhere it can't emotionally hurt you, and get comfortable. We are doing one of those long, slow historical drifts tonight. No pop quizzes, no dramatic twists, just a gentle slide backward in time until your brain gives up and falls asleep. If you're still awake at the end, honestly, that's on you. So let's ease into it. Imagine the modern world loosening its grip for a while. Notifications stop screaming. The future can wait. Tonight, we're sitting by a fire that doesn't buzz, doesn't glow blue, and absolutely does not care about your email inbox. This is a human fire, a very old one, and it's been doing its job for longer than anyone's been counting. You're leaning back against the cool stone of a cave wall. It's uneven, a little uncomfortable, but familiar in a way that doesn't need explaining. The fire in front of you crackles softly, not in a dramatic way, just enough to remind you it's alive and paying attention. Someone adds a piece of wood now and then, because of course they do. Fire doesn't manage itself. That's kind of the theme of this whole era. An older voice drifts through the warm air. Senna. She's been talking for a while now. She always does. The stories wander, circle back, repeat themselves slightly because that's how memory sticks. She's not just telling stories for fun. This is practical knowledge wrapped in narrative, survival advice, disguised as entertainment. The original educational podcast, minus the ads. There's no writing here, no books, no notes app. Everything that matters lives inside human heads, passed along by voices that rise and fall with the firelight. If you forget something important, that's it. No searching it later. So people listen, really listen. As the evening deepens, the fire lowers, not dying, just settling. The light softens and pulls everyone a little closer together. It's warmer near the center. Children are already drifting. The youngest ones have been arranged carefully on grass mats, wrapped in furs that smell faintly of smoke and animal life. Close enough to feel the heat, far enough not to cause a tragedy everyone would be talking about forever. Mothers hum quietly, not full songs, just fragments. Simple sounds that say everything is fine, go to sleep, nothing is trying to eat you tonight. Older children are still awake, technically, sitting near parents, heads drooping. Every few minutes someone nudges them back into consciousness, because apparently bedtime negotiations are eternal and transcend all of history. You feel it too, that shift. The alert edge of the day starts to dull, your breathing slows without you asking it to. Muscles that worked hard from dawn finally get the message that they can stop proving something. This is evening in the Paleolithic world, not exciting, just earned. Near the fire, someone works stone against stone. Maintenance, not ambition. Big projects are for daylight. This is just keeping tools alive. The sound is rhythmic, soft, almost meditative. Preparation masquerading as relaxation. Nearby, women repair clothing with bone needles and sinew thread, hands moving with the confidence that comes from doing something thousands of times. These garments took hundreds of hours to make. You don't just throw them away because fashion changed. People sit closer now, shoulders touch, children lean into adults, casual contact everywhere, not awkward, not negotiated, just constant reassurance that you belong here and no one plans to leave you behind. The fire pulls everyone toward it, not just for warmth, but because it's the center of everything. It always has been, long before town squares or living rooms or comment sections. Sleeping areas form a loose circle around the fire, families cluster together instinctively, children and elders closest to the warmth. The vulnerable get priority because survival favors groups that understand basic math. Your own sleeping space is already prepared. Grass shaken out, furs aired. The system works because it has to. The cave itself seems to breathe. Stone walls release the day's stored heat slowly, keeping the temperature steady. Caves are excellent at this, which is why humans keep coming back to them over and over across continents and millennia. You stretch, adjusting your position, feeling full in the quiet, deeply satisfying way that comes from having eaten enough and worked honestly for it. This is contentment, Paleolithic edition. Needs met, people safe, Another day successfully navigated without being killed by weather, animals, or bad decisions. Outside, wind moves through the dark, reminding you that the world continues doing whatever it wants. Inside, there's a pocket of human control, fragile but real. Someone begins banking the fire for the night. Carefully, this is not guesswork. Fire management is serious business. Logs positioned just right, coals arranged to burn slowly, enough heat to last, not enough flame to ruin everything while people sleep. Someone will check it through the night. Responsibility rotates. Everyone takes their turn eventually. Evening tasks taper off. Personal projects appear, a bit of carving, some plant fibers sorted for later, possessions organized, not many of those, but each one matters. Senna shifts from storytelling to instruction, quietly showing younger women how to prepare medicinal plants. Willow bark for pain, herbs for fever, dosages matter, timing matters. This is medicine without the white coats or the malpractice insurance. Nearby, children gather around Brun, who's showing them how to twist plant fibers into cordage. Simple technology, essential technology. Rope holds this world together more than anyone likes to admit. The kids' first attempts are uneven, clumsy, a little embarrassing, but no one rushes them. Skills come with time. Firelight dances across the cave walls, catching glimpses of paintings left by people who sat exactly where you're sitting now. Animals, hands, symbols that mean something specific to people who are long gone, but still feel important anyway. The cave echoes just slightly. Someone figured out long ago that sound behaves differently here. Music once filled this space during ceremonies. Tonight is quieter, but the memory lingers. Gradually the cave settles, tools are put away, clothing arranged for morning, conversations soften then fade, bedding is pulled close, children tucked in tight. You lie down on your mat, spear and knife within reach because optimism has limits. The stone floor presses up through the grass, not comfortable, but familiar. Furs wrap around you, carrying the weight of past hunts and many nights of sleep. Breathing slows. The fire is mostly embers now, glowing like a steady heartbeat. Outside, owls call. Wolves remind the darkness they're still out there. Inside, none of that feels urgent. Your body relaxes fully. Another successful day. Food shared, knowledge passed on, nothing heroic, everything essential. The fire flickers against the painted walls, connecting this night to countless others. Your breathing deepens, muscles let go. The day dissolves into warmth and memory as the long human night continues, exactly as it has for tens of thousands of years. The cave grows quieter, but it never really goes silent. It just changes texture. The sharp sounds disappear first. No more stone tapping stone, no more murmured instruction. What remains is softer, breathing, shifting furs, the occasional pop from the fire as it settles deeper into itself. The kind of soundscape that tells your nervous system it's allowed to stop checking for danger every 5 seconds. You lie there watching the embers pulse, not actively thinking, just letting your mind drift the way it does when it knows it doesn't have to solve anything tonight. The people around you are shapes now. Familiar outlines, you don't need to see faces to know who is where. Everyone has a place. That's one of the understated luxuries of this world. No constant renegotiation of identity. No wondering where you stand. You are here because you belong here. Somewhere on the edge of sleep, you notice the quiet competence of it all. No one announced bedtime. No signal was given. It just happened. Humans easing naturally into rest because darkness fell and the work was done. Circadian rhythm in its purest form. No screens, no artificial urgency, just bodies responding to a cycle they evolved inside of. This is something modern people romanticize endlessly and then immediately ruin with electric lighting and caffeine. Paleolithic humans didn't need sleep apps or weighted blankets. They had exhaustion, firelight, and the knowledge that tomorrow would demand their full attention again. That tends to do the trick. Your thoughts drift back through the day without effort. The hunt, the gathering, the long walks across uneven ground. Muscles remember even when the mind does narrate. That physical memory settles into your bones, heavy and grounding. The kind of tired that doesn't feel bad. The kind that feels earned. Somewhere nearby, an adult shifts and checks the fire. Just a glance, a practiced movement. The responsibility passes quietly from one person to the next through the night. No resentment, no performance. Everyone understands what happens if the fire fails: cold, darkness, predators getting ambitious. So the system holds. It always does until one day it doesn't, but not tonight. The fire continues its long, patient work. Fire is doing more than providing heat. It's holding the cave together socially. Without it, everyone would scatter into smaller, colder, more afraid shapes. Fire makes people sit closer, talk longer, teach more. It's the original social technology. As you drift, your mind wanders forward in time without quite realizing it. These people around you don't know it yet, but they are laying the groundwork for a spectacular amount of royal nonsense. All the kings and queens and catastrophically bad family trees start here, not in palaces, in caves, with people who understood cooperation better than inheritance laws. Somewhere far down the genetic line, someone will decide that marrying their cousin is a solid political strategy. Another will insist that divine right explains why they're deeply unpleasant. Entire dynasties will rise and fall because they forgot the basic Paleolithic rule of survival. Don't isolate yourself from the group. But tonight, none of that exists yet. There are no crowns, no thrones, no titles passed down like cursed objects. Authority here is practical. You listen to Senna because she knows things that keep people alive. You respect Brun because his rope holds. You watch Jorik because his tools work. Power is competence, not lineage. It's almost funny, in a very slow, sleepy way, how complicated humans will eventually make things. These people have no concept of bureaucracy, no idea that one day entire empires will collapse because someone inherited a jaw that didn't quite fit their skull. The simplicity here isn't ignorance, it's focus. Your breathing matches the cave now. Slow, steady, inhale, exhale. The fire pulses. Embers glow brighter, then dim. A rhythm old enough that your body recognizes it without needing explanation. This is what your nervous system evolved for: predictable patterns, community presence, clear threats, and clear safety. In the modern world, danger is abstract, financial, social, existential. Here, danger has teeth or weather attached to it. It can be prepared for. That makes all the difference. Your mind drifts again, brushing against the thought that these people remember everything that matters. Not because they're smarter than modern humans, but because memory is survival here. They don't waste mental space on trivia. Every plant name, every animal habit, every seasonal change matters. Forgetting something important can kill you. That tends to sharpen focus. Modern humans complain about bad memory while outsourcing it entirely to devices. These people are the device, walking, breathing libraries of lived experience. Children learn by watching, copying, failing, trying again. No grades, no deadlines, just gradual absorption until skill becomes instinct. You feel sleep pulling harder now. Thoughts stretch out and lose edges. Images blend. The cave walls seem to breathe with you. Painted animals flicker in the half-light, not moving, but not entirely still either. Your brain fills in gaps because that's what it does, pattern-seeking even at rest. Somewhere in this drifting space, the line between then and now softens. The cave could be your bedroom. The fire could be a radiator or a nightlight. The sounds of breathing could be traffic far away or someone you love asleep nearby. The context changes. The feeling doesn't. Safety feels the same across millennia. This is the quiet truth no one likes to admit. Strip away the layers of technology and status and performance, and humans want very simple things: warmth, belonging, enough food, a sense that tomorrow is manageable. Everything else is decoration. The fire sinks lower, mostly coals now. The light barely reaches the edges of the cave. Shadows pool softly. The night outside deepens, but inside remains held. Your body sinks into the mat. Furs press gently against your skin, heavy but comforting. You stop actively thinking. Thoughts drift in fragments. Images of hands working stone, of children laughing earlier by the fire, of Senna's voice looping back on itself, repeating lessons because repetition is kindness when memory is all you have. This is how humans rested long before anyone invented productivity culture. Sleep wasn't optimized. It just happened. No alarms, no guilt, no scrolling. Darkness came, bodies followed. Your breathing slows further. Muscles release the last bits of tension they were holding out of habit. The fire continues to glow, stubborn and reliable. Outside, the night does what it has always done. Inside, a small group of humans sleeps, unaware that they are the blueprint for everything that comes next. Sleep doesn't arrive all at once. It never really has. It creeps in slowly, testing whether you're done with the day, whether there's anything left that absolutely must be worried about. Your body answers for you, no, nothing urgent, not tonight. The cave is secure. The fire is steady. The people around you are breathing in that deep, unguarded way that says danger has been postponed until morning. Your thoughts wander in wide, lazy circles now, not focused enough to be productive, not scattered enough to be anxious, just drifting. This is the mental state humans spent most of their evolutionary history in when they weren't actively solving problems, calm alertness dissolving into rest. The kind modern brains rarely get without chemical assistance or very specific playlists. It's strange to think how familiar this would feel if you stripped away everything modern. No electricity, no deadlines, no notifications quietly demanding attention, just darkness arriving on schedule and bodies responding the way they were designed to. Paleolithic humans didn't have insomnia in the modern sense. They had cold nights, hunger, fear sometimes. But lying awake replaying awkward conversations from 3 years ago wasn't really a thing. Your ancestors didn't overthink. They thought deeply when it mattered, but they didn't ruminate endlessly. If something went wrong, it was addressed directly or it wasn't fixable at all. Worry had limits. As sleep deepens, your mind drifts again, forward and backward at the same time. These people sleeping around you will eventually turn into lineage, bloodlines, family trees that stretch and twist, and in some cases, fold back in on themselves in deeply unfortunate ways. This is where it all begins, not with crowns or titles, but with small groups relying on cooperation rather than control. At some point in the future, someone will look at their child and decide that marrying into another powerful family is more important than genetic diversity. That decision will echo for centuries. Jaws will protrude, immune systems will weaken, portrait painters will become very creative, all because a basic Paleolithic truth got ignored. Variety keeps you alive. Here no one is thinking about that. Pairing happens based on proximity, familiarity, shared labor, and mutual tolerance. Romance is practical. Love grows out of trust, not political strategy. No one is trying to preserve a throne that doesn't exist yet. The fire flickers again, a small shift. Someone stirs, half awake, checks it instinctively, then settles back down. Even in sleep, responsibility hums quietly in the background. That's another thing modern people underestimate about ancient life. It wasn't lazy, it was efficient. Effort went where it mattered. You feel the weight of the day fully now, limbs heavy, fingers relaxed, jaw unclenched. Your breathing slows to a steady, almost imperceptible rhythm. Inhale, pause, exhale. The pause gets longer, time stretches. Somewhere deep in your brain, older than language, there's recognition. This is right. This is how nights are supposed to feel, not hyperstimulated, not empty, just held. The cave smells like smoke and earth and old stone. Familiar smells, grounding smells, nothing artificial, nothing sharp. Your senses don't have to filter much here. There's no overload. The world is small and manageable. In this half-dreaming state, it's easy to see how later humans would start inventing stories about gods and spirits and ancestors watching over them. Sitting here, surrounded by darkness and firelight, with painted animals staring softly from the walls, it would be harder not to believe in something larger. The cave itself feels alive. But belief here isn't abstract. It's woven into daily survival. Respect the animals or you don't eat. Respect the weather or you freeze. Respect each other or you don't last. Spirituality doesn't need temples when your entire existence is a negotiation with nature. Your mind drifts again, briefly brushing against the idea that modern humans carry all of this inside them and mostly ignore it. The same brain wiring, the same need for rhythm and rest and community, just layered over with complexity and noise. Paleolithic software running modern updates it never asked for. The fire dims further. The light barely touches the cave ceiling now. Most of the space is shadow, but it doesn't feel threatening. Shadows are just places the light hasn't bothered to reach yet. Your thoughts slow to fragments, images without commentary, hands twisting fibers, stone tools lined neatly, children asleep, faces relaxed in a way only children manage. Senna's voice repeating something important for the 10th time because repetition is how you make sure knowledge survives longer than any single person. Sleep deepens, the boundary between awareness and dreaming thins. You're no longer observing the cave so much as being part of it. Another warm shape among many, another breathing body contributing to the quiet rhythm of the group. Outside, the night continues, predators move, wind shifts, stars burn silently overhead. None of that requires your attention right now. The fire has it handled, the group has it handled. This is how humans endured long before anyone wrote history down, not through constant vigilance, through shared rest, through trusting that tomorrow will arrive and that, when it does, you'll meet it together. The fire is almost entirely embers. It still gives off heat, steady and reliable, the way it has for hundreds of thousands of years. Fire doesn't rush, it doesn't perform, it just continues doing the one thing it does best, keeping humans alive long enough to think about bigger ideas. Our body feels dense, grounded. The stone beneath the grass mat presses upward, reminding you where you are, anchoring you to the earth in a way modern mattresses never quite manage. There's no illusion of floating here. You are supported by the ground itself, the same ground that fed you, sheltered you, and will one day take you back without asking for permission. Breathing deepens further. Each inhale feels slower than the last, each exhale longer. The pause between them stretches until time itself feels unimportant. This is the state your ancestors slipped into night after night. No guided meditation, no instructions, just biology doing exactly what it evolved to do. Somewhere in this drifting space, your mind wanders again, forward this time, into futures none of these people could imagine. Cities rising, walls built not for shelter from animals but from other humans, hierarchies forming, titles being invented, someone deciding that ruling others is a reasonable career choice. Eventually crowns appear, and with them the slow unraveling of common sense. People begin insisting that power should be inherited rather than earned, that bloodlines matter more than competence, that proximity to someone important makes you important by default. It's a bold theory. History will test it thoroughly and find it wanting, repeatedly. But here in this cave, none of that exists yet. Authority still belongs to those who know things, to the ones who remember where the water is in a dry season, to the ones whose tools don't break. Leadership is practical, temporary, and revocable. No one is above the group for long. Your breathing stays slow. Heavy eyelids press closed completely now. You're not watching the fire anymore. You just feel it. A presence rather than an image. Warmth without shape. It's easy in this state to imagine how later humans will forget what actually kept their ancestors alive. They'll replace cooperation with control, adaptation with tradition. They'll double down on bad ideas because admitting a mistake feels worse than suffering the consequences. Of course they will. Humans are nothing if not consistent. The irony is almost comforting. Even with all the missteps ahead, all the empires that will rise and collapse under the weight of their own ego, the core stays the same. People still gather, still seek warmth, still tell stories at night to make sense of the dark. Your ancestors here don't think of themselves as special. They're just doing what needs to be done. That's the quiet strength of it. Survival without spectacle, competence without applause. The cave holds steady. Stone walls don't care about ambition. They've seen it all before. They'll see it all again. The painted animals remain, half visible, half forgotten, watching generations come and go with the patience of things that outlast names. Sleep deepens into something thicker now. Dreams begin to form, but gently, no sudden imagery, just fragments drawn from the day. Hands, firelight, familiar voices, movements repeated until they blur into comfort. Dreams rooted in real experiences, not abstract anxiety. This is the kind of sleep modern humans rarely get, not because it's impossible, but because the world they've built fights it constantly. Too much light, too much noise, too much urgency. Paleolithic life was hard, but it understood rest. Your body sinks further into stillness, muscles completely slack, breathing barely noticeable. You're not guarding anything now, the group has you covered. And this is perhaps the most important inheritance of all. Not tools, not fire, not even language, but trust. The ability to lie down in the dark and believe that others will keep watch when you can't, that tomorrow will come and you'll face it together. The embers glow faintly, one last soft crackle. The night continues its slow rotation around the earth. Inside the cave, another human sleeps, carrying forward a lineage that will someday build cathedrals, write laws, invent machines, and somehow still long for this exact feeling of safety and belonging. You can almost feel it happening. Population grows, camps become villages, villages become towns, towns become places where someone decides they should be in charge permanently, because obviously. Agriculture locks people in place, fields need guarding, food needs storing, storage needs counting, counting leads to ownership, ownership leads to arguments, arguments lead to someone suggesting hierarchy as a solution, which is a fascinating leap of logic. And so kings appear, not all at once, quietly, gradually. One family starts keeping the best land, one leader's children inherit authority instead of earning it. The idea feels efficient at first. Familiar faces, predictable leadership. What could possibly go wrong? Your breathing remains slow as these thoughts pass through without resistance. None of this is alarming. It's just human behavior unfolding at its usual pace. The first royal families don't think of themselves as strange. They see power as something natural, like weather. If they rule, it must be because they're meant to. This belief will age poorly. Generations pass, crowns grow heavier, literally and metaphorically. Authority hardens into tradition, tradition into law, law into something no one remembers the reason for anymore, but they enforce it anyway. Of course they do. Somewhere along the line, someone decides that marrying within the family is a good way to keep power consolidated. This is the moment history quietly sighs. It starts innocently, cousins, second cousins, distant relations who insist it barely counts, and then, slowly, distances shrink. Family trees begin folding in on themselves like tired maps. Genetics clears its throat and prepares a very long lesson. Royal children are born fragile, sickly, oversized heads balanced on narrow shoulders, jaws that don't quite line up, eyes that drift just enough to be noticeable. Doctors blame humors, priests blame God, no one blames the obvious. Still, portraits are commissioned, artists are encouraged to be generous, chins soften, spines straighten, reality is politely ignored. You drift deeper, none of this is urgent, it's just the background hum of human error. Kings insist they are chosen by divine will, which is convenient because it removes the need for self-reflection. Queens learn to smile through exhaustion, pregnancies stacked back to back, bodies treated as diplomatic infrastructure. Love is optional, duty is not. Children raised in palaces grow strange in quiet ways, isolated, watched, praised too much or not at all. They learn early that affection is conditional, that mistakes are public, that privacy is a myth, emotional regulation is not prioritized. Some cope by becoming rigid, others by becoming cruel, a few by disappearing inward entirely. History will label them mad, weak, or monstrous, depending on how inconvenient they were. Meanwhile, the world outside the palace walls keeps moving. Farmers plant, craftsmen build, people fall asleep around fires, real or imagined, trusting rulers they will never meet. Your body barely shifts, sleep is thick now, layered, thoughts pass without sticking. Empires rise like someone promising they've finally figured everything out. Empires fall like someone discovering they absolutely have not. The cycle repeats with impressive consistency. And yet beneath all of it, the ancient rhythm continues. Humans still need warmth, still need rest, still need belonging. Even kings, especially kings, lie awake at night haunted by fears they're not allowed to admit. The crown does not protect against loneliness, it amplifies it. Breathing slows further. The mind releases its grip on chronology. Centuries blur together. Names lose importance. Patterns remain. The same mistakes dressed in different fabrics. The same ambitions wrapped in different flags. The same fragile bodies carrying titles far heavier than bones were ever meant to bear. Sleep carries you onward, gently, patiently, the way history itself does when no one is watching. Royal beds grow larger over time, taller, softer, draped in fabric heavy enough to crush a normal person. They look comfortable, but sleep does not come easily to the people lying in them. Too much power makes the night noisy. A king lies awake listening to echoes in a palace built to impress rather than soothe. Every hallway amplifies footsteps. Every servant movement feels like surveillance. Even silence feels watched. Of course, he can't rest. Queens learn early that their bodies are timelines. Puberty triggers negotiations. Menopause ends relevance. In between, they exist in a constant state of being evaluated. Fertility charts before charts exist. Failure blamed entirely on them, naturally. Children are born into these rooms and immediately burdened with expectations they don't understand. A prince is praised for standing before he can walk. A princess is admired for being quiet. Neither is allowed to be ordinary. Your breathing remains slow. The details pass by without sharp edges. None of this needs emotional spikes. It's just routine dysfunction, inherited like eye color. Some royal children grow up delicate, plagued by migraines, stomach issues, fatigue that no one names properly. Others grow volatile, prone to sudden rages or long silences. Tutors call it temperament. Advisors call it weakness. No one calls it trauma. Marriages are arranged with the enthusiasm of a property exchange. Portraits are sent ahead like resumes. She has good hips, someone notes seriously. His jaw is acceptable, another replies. Romance is not part of the equation. When couples finally meet, they are often disappointed but polite. Years of letters have prepared them to perform civility, not intimacy. Nights are endured, days are staged. Children are hoped for, not loved yet. And still, history insists on calling this stability. The palace smells faintly of wax, old fabric, and human anxiety. Windows are large but rarely opened. Fresh air is suspicious. Drafts are blamed for illness. Sunlight is decorative, not therapeutic. Sleep deepens. The brain absorbs this without judgment. Kings surround themselves with flatterers who tell them exactly what they want to hear. This works well until reality intervenes. It always does. When crops fail, or money runs out, or people begin to grumble, confusion sets in. Weren't they chosen by God? Queens develop quiet strategies for survival. Some manipulate, some retreat into ritual, some attach themselves to religion with intense focus, finding structure where affection failed. Prayer becomes the only place they are not being measured. Children watch all of this. They learn early that love is conditional and power is unstable. They absorb lessons without realizing it. Later, as adults, they repeat patterns with impressive consistency. Your body is still, limbs heavy, breath steady. Outside the palace, life continues at its own pace. People sleep deeply after physical labor. Their dreams are simple: food, weather, faces they recognize. Their problems are real but finite. Inside the palace, worries multiply without limit. Succession, alliances, appearances, rumors whispered too loudly. Every cough feels political. Every delayed pregnancy feels catastrophic. Time drifts, names blur. Louis becomes another Louis, Charles another Charles. The specifics stop mattering, the pattern remains. Crowns keep passing from head to head, never quite fitting anyone properly. Some sit crooked, some press too hard, some slide off entirely. Sleep carries you along without effort. The story does not rush, it never has. By the time royal families have been ruling for a few centuries, they start running out of new people to marry. This is not because the world lacks people. It is because the list of acceptable bloodlines becomes comically short. Kings want alliances, but only with families they consider equal. Equal usually means similarly wealthy, similarly powerful, and preferably already related. And so the family tree begins to fold inward. Branches loop back, roots tangle. What was once a tree starts to resemble a decorative knot carved by someone who really should have stopped earlier. At first, no one notices much difference. Cousin marriages are waved off as practical. Everyone knows each other. Trust is assumed. Children are born looking mostly normal if you squint. This reinforces the belief that nothing is wrong, which is unfortunate timing. Generations pass, the pool grows smaller, the repetition increases, same faces, same noses, same chins appearing again and again like a bad logo rebrand no one approved. Doctors, such as they are, observe symptoms they can't quite explain. Weak immune systems, developmental delays, bodies that struggle under the weight of expectations they didn't ask for. Treatments involve bleeding, prayers, and telling the patient to try harder. Sleep deepens as this pattern repeats. Your breathing remains slow, unconcerned. This is not shocking. It's just a long series of small decisions compounding quietly. Some royal children are born healthy enough, but strange, socially awkward, intensely anxious, prone to obsessive routines. Others are physically fragile, wrapped in layers, shielded from drafts, sunlight, and most of reality. Their lives become narrow corridors of supervision. Parents worry, but rarely question the system that produced this outcome. It's easier to blame fate, or God, or a wet nurse, someone else, anyone else. Portrait painters stay busy. The more questionable the genetics, the more generous the brushwork. Chins retreat, eyes realign, bodies slim down. Reality is improved for the sake of posterity. Museums will later call this style. Royal marriages continue with impressive stubbornness. A king marries his niece. A queen marries her cousin who looks unsettlingly like her brother. Family gatherings become confusing even before the language barrier. And yet everyone insists this is normal, because it has to be. The alternative would require admitting centuries of mistakes. Sleep keeps you floating. None of this requires outrage. It already happened. The public, mostly unaware of the full extent, notices small things. A ruler who tires easily, another who avoids crowds, one who seems confused by basic tasks. Rumors circulate, some are cruel, some are accurate, most are ignored. Courts adapt, advisors gain power, regents step in. Decisions are made quietly on behalf of someone wearing a crown but not quite filling it. This arrangement works until it doesn't. It usually doesn't. Some monarchs compensate with control. Rules multiply, protocol thickens, every movement becomes ritualized, order replaces competence. Everyone walks on eggshells that cost more than a farmer's house. Others retreat inward. They pray, they read, they collect strange objects, they obsess over clocks or animals or minor offenses. Their worlds shrink to manageable sizes. Sleep remains deep. The story flows like a river you're no longer swimming in, just drifting along. Children raised in these environments inherit not just titles but behaviors. They learn to suppress emotion, then explode unpredictably. They learn that vulnerability is dangerous and affection transactional. They learn that survival depends on performance. No one teaches them how to rest. Meanwhile, outside the palace, genetics do what genetics do. People marry neighbors, diversity increases, bodies adapt, minds remain flexible. Ironically, the people with the least power tend to be the most resilient. Inside, bloodlines stagnate, innovation slows, rulers cling to tradition like a life raft, even as it leaks steadily. Sleep pulls you further away from specifics, names dissolve, dates blur. It's the shape of the story that matters now. At some point, the consequences become impossible to hide. A king cannot walk without assistance. A queen cannot speak clearly. An heir fails to survive childhood, again and again. Succession crises follow, wars threaten, alliances strain. The same families scramble to rearrange themselves into something workable. It never quite works. Historians later debate causes with impressive confidence. Climate, economics, religion, they mention genetics politely, if at all. But the pattern is there, plain and quiet, waiting for anyone willing to look without romance. Sleep is heavy now, almost complete, thoughts slow to the pace of breath. Despite everything, the institutions persist longer than they should. Humans are very good at maintaining broken systems if those systems benefit a few people at the top. Eventually, cracks widen, revolutions murmur. The public grows less patient with rulers who look unwell and rule poorly. The illusion of divine right fades under electric light and printed pamphlets. Crowns fall, some gently, some violently, most embarrassingly. And yet, even as monarchies weaken, the human story underneath continues unchanged. People still want safety, warmth, belonging. Your body remains perfectly still. The ancient part of your brain recognizes this rhythm. The fire may be gone, replaced by memory, but the need is the same. History does not judge here, it observes, softly, repetitively. The family tree that refused to behave becomes a cautionary shape, stretching across centuries, reminding future generations that biology does not care about titles. Sleep holds you there, in that quiet understanding, where nothing needs to be fixed tonight. By the time monarchies reach their late stages, tradition has fully replaced logic. No one remembers why certain rules exist. They are followed because they are old, and old things are assumed to be wise. This is a recurring human mistake, but royalty elevates it to an art form. Court rituals grow increasingly elaborate. Who stands where? Who speaks first? Who eats which piece of bread? Entire careers are built on enforcing these details. None of them improve governance. All of them consume time. Kings continue to rule largely because no one has agreed on a better alternative yet. The crown sits on a head that may or may not be capable, but removing it feels dangerous, impolite, and frankly exhausting. So people adapt instead. They always do. Advisors multiply, councils form, power leaks sideways, away from the throne, settling into quieter hands. The monarch becomes a symbol more than a decision-maker. This works surprisingly well until the symbol insists on participating. Sleep deepens as this pattern repeats across continents, different languages, same outcome. Some rulers, sensing their own limitations, lean heavily into image, grand buildings, lavish ceremonies, portraits staged to suggest vitality that no longer exists. It's branding before the word exists. Others retreat entirely, leaving governance to whoever is nearby and competent enough. History will later argue about who was really in charge. At the time, people just want things to function. Royal families continue intermarrying out of habit. By now, it's less about strategy and more about inertia. They marry each other because they always have, because the idea of marrying outside the circle feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar things are threatening. Children continue to be born into this system without consent. Some are healthy enough to navigate it, others struggle quietly. A few are visibly unwell, their bodies carrying the accumulated consequences of centuries of repetition. Sleep holds you steady as these lives pass by without urgency. Medical understanding inches forward but slowly. Doctors notice patterns, they keep notes, they whisper theories. Still, they are careful not to offend anyone important. Truth moves cautiously when power is nearby. Religious explanations remain popular. Suffering is reframed as virtue, illness as trial. This is comforting because it suggests purpose where there may only be biology. Royal parents oscillate between overprotection and emotional distance. Some hover anxiously, fearing loss. Others detach, treating fragile children as inevitabilities rather than individuals. Love exists, but it is filtered through expectation. Sleep is heavy. The story feels far away now, like something heard through a wall. Public perception shifts gradually. Printing presses spread rumors faster than royal proclamations can suppress them. People notice inconsistencies, a ruler who cannot ride, another who cannot speak clearly, another who avoids appearing entirely. Satire emerges, carefully at first, then more boldly. Jokes travel faster than armies. authority erodes not with violence but with laughter. Some monarchs respond by tightening control, others by pretending nothing is happening. Neither approach works particularly well. Time continues its quiet work. Revolutions do not always explode. Sometimes they simply replace belief with boredom. People stop believing the crown matters, and once that happens, it mostly doesn't. Sleep carries you gently through these transitions. Formerly powerful families fade into obscurity. Some adapt. Some cling to relevance through ceremony alone. Titles persist long after authority disappears, like echoes in empty rooms. Yet even as systems change, the personal lives within them remain oddly familiar. Anxiety, loneliness, desire for approval, fear of inadequacy. Power does not erase these things, it often sharpens them. Royal descendants grow up in strange limbo, important but irrelevant, watched but powerless. Some romanticize the past, others resent it. A few quietly slip into ordinary life, relieved. The old family trees remain, though, traced in archives, studied in textbooks, used as cautionary diagrams in genetics lectures. Sleep slows your breathing further. Historians argue about when monarchies truly ended. Dates vary. The reality is messier. Power does not vanish overnight. It thins, it disperses, it becomes ceremonial. And beneath all of it, humanity continues doing what it has always done, forming groups, making mistakes, repeating patterns, occasionally learning. The ancient need for safety, warmth, and belonging remains unchanged. Whether in a cave or a palace, humans seek the same quiet reassurance at night. Sleep holds you there, in that realization, where centuries flatten into a single slow breath. After crowns lose their real power, something strange happens. The people who wore them don't immediately know what to do next. For generations, identity was handed down alongside titles. King, Queen, Highness, Majesty. Remove those words, and what's left is just a person, often a deeply confused one. Former royals wake up in large rooms that suddenly feel too quiet. No council waiting, no petitions stacked on the desk, no servants hovering for orders that will shape lives, just silence. And silence, it turns out, is harder to manage than authority. Some cling to ceremony long after it stops mattering. They still dress formally, still insist on protocol at dinner, still correct people who forget titles that no longer carry weight. It's not arrogance so much as muscle memory. This is how they were taught to exist. Others collapse inward. Without constant validation, insecurities surface quickly. Anxiety fills the space power once occupied. Depression settles in quietly, mistaken at first for fatigue. No one taught them how to live without being important. Sleep remains steady. None of this is dramatic. It's just adjustment stretched across decades. Descendants grow up hearing stories about lost greatness. Grandfather was a king. Great-aunt was an empress. Family dinners feel like history lessons with unresolved grief. Children absorb a sense of loss they never personally experienced. Some internalize it as destiny interrupted. Others rebel against it entirely. They cut ties, change names, move far away, try to become ordinary on purpose. It doesn't always work. Being raised around inherited importance leaves marks that don't fade easily. Old palaces are repurposed. Museums, government buildings, tourist attractions. Visitors shuffle through rooms once filled with power struggles, now reduced to audio guides and velvet ropes. People whisper, even when no one asks them to. The beds remain enormous, the ceilings still too high, the rooms echo in ways modern apartments never do. Sleep drifts deeper as these spaces pass through the mind like slow-moving scenery. Historians debate legacies. Were these rulers villains or victims of their circumstances? The answer, as usual, is unsatisfying. They were humans shaped by systems larger than themselves. Some did harm willingly. Some drifted along doing harm accidentally. Most were simply unprepared for the roles they inherited. Genetic consequences linger quietly. Certain traits persist in descendants long after titles vanish. Weak joints, narrow jaws, autoimmune issues. Family doctors notice patterns but keep their observations professional and understated. Public fascination remains. People love fallen royalty. It's safer than living power. There are documentaries, books, films that romanticize misery with impressive efficiency. Sleep stays calm, no need to critique. This is just how stories evolve. Meanwhile, the world moves on. New systems replace old ones, complete with their own flaws. Power concentrates again, just under different names. CEOs instead of kings. Dynasties still form, they just call themselves something else. Humans do not abandon hierarchy easily, they just rebrand it. The same psychological patterns resurface. Children born into privilege grow up insulated. Expectations distort development. Pressure builds. Emotional literacy lags. The setting changes. The outcomes rhyme. Sleep carries this observation without judgment. The ancient instinct for belonging persists. Whether wearing a crown or a corporate badge, people want to matter. They want to be seen. They want reassurance that their existence has weight. Former royal families attend events where their presence is ceremonial at best. Applause polite, interest polite, relevance conditional. They smile well, they have practice. Some become symbols of nostalgia, others fade into footnotes. A few manage to reinvent themselves entirely, surprising everyone, including themselves. The long arc of history flattens here. The rise, the stagnation, the quiet after. It happens over and over, just with different costumes. Sleep deepens further, breathing barely registers. In this state, it's easy to see that the real story was never about crowns at all. It was about people placed in environments that rewarded repetition over reflection, systems that confused longevity with wisdom. The cave and the palace feel closer now than they ever did before. Both were shelters, both promised safety, both depended on cooperation even when they pretended otherwise. Firelight becomes chandelier light, community becomes court, the human needs underneath remain unchanged. Sleep holds you there, gently, as history continues its slow, looping murmur, unconcerned with conclusions, content to simply keep going. Night continues the way it always has, without caring how interesting anyone finds it. Breathing stays slow, the body stays still, thoughts move, but they don't announce themselves anymore. They just arrive, do a small loop, and drift off again. History keeps talking, not because it needs to be heard, but because it never learned how to stop. Once the spectacle fades, what remains is paperwork. This is the least romantic phase of power, and therefore the most accurate. Treaties rewritten, properties reassigned, titles reclassified into something ceremonial and harmless. Lawyers replace courtiers, the language becomes duller but far more effective. Former monarchs learn new routines. Some wake early out of habit, expecting schedules that no longer exist. Others sleep late, exhausted by years of pretending alertness mattered. Without constant performance, fatigue finally catches up. Their lives become smaller, not physically at first. The buildings remain enormous, but emotionally, fewer people call, fewer decisions require their input. Opinions once treated as law are now politely ignored. This adjustment does not go smoothly. Some insist on relevance by attaching themselves to causes, charities, foundations, ceremonial roles that come with applause but no authority. It helps, a little. Applause is addictive even when it's hollow. Others withdraw completely. They read excessively. They garden. They become experts in obscure topics no one asks about. It's calming to know things when knowing used to be optional. Children raised after the fall experience a strange contradiction. They are told they are special, but the world disagrees. They are reminded of heritage, but it has no currency. They are watched, but not obeyed. This produces an odd personality mix. Confidence without competence, or competence driven by insecurity. Some grow humble, others grow resentful. Most carry a vague sense of disappointment they can't quite locate. Sleep remains deep and steady. None of this requires excitement. Public interest waxes and wanes. Anniversaries revive attention briefly. A wedding, a funeral, a scandal small enough to be digestible. People like former royalty best when they behave badly in manageable ways. It confirms comforting narratives. Historians write reassessments. Earlier generations were too harsh, or too kind, or missed the point entirely. New evidence emerges, old assumptions collapse. This happens every few decades, like clockwork. The genetic consequences do not vanish with power. Doctors quietly note family histories, patterns persist, fragile joints, narrow airways, anxiety disorders that run deeper than personality. Medication helps more than prayer ever did, but stigma lingers. Sleep continues, the body doesn't care about lineage. In archives, the family trees remain impressive and unsettling, lines looping back on themselves, names repeating with minimal variation. A reminder that tradition, when left unchecked, eventually defeats itself. Modern descendants scroll through these records online. Some feel pride, others embarrassment. A few close the page quickly, unsettled by how familiar the faces look. Power moves elsewhere, governments grow complex, corporations expand, influence shifts shape but not behavior, new elites form, equally convinced they are different, equally certain they have earned what they inherited. The cycle resumes under new branding. Sleep keeps everything level. It becomes clear, in this quiet mental state, that monarchy was never the anomaly. It was just an early version of something humans do repeatedly: centralize authority, protect it fiercely, explain its failures creatively. The personal cost remains consistent: isolation at the top, fear of irrelevance, emotional immaturity disguised as confidence. Former kings and queens age into ordinary concerns: joint pain, forgetfulness, the slow shrinking of social circles. Death arrives without ceremony, obituaries are polite, headlines brief, history moves on immediately. Their belongings are auctioned, furniture scattered, personal letters archived, intimate thoughts preserved for strangers to analyze centuries later. It's a strange kind of immortality. Sleep stays unbroken. Museums continue to display crowns behind glass. Children stare, adults read placards. Everyone agrees they're interesting objects. No one wants one. The past becomes safe once it loses power. Night deepens further, breathing barely shifts. The ancient need remains unchanged. Safety, belonging, rest. Titles never provided these reliably. Community did, still does. And history, having said all it needs to say for now, keeps murmuring softly, waiting for the next generation to repeat the same mistakes in slightly improved clothing. Night keeps moving forward in small increments measured by breath rather than minutes. The body remains still, heavy, settled, doing exactly what it knows how to do without instruction. Thoughts continue, but they arrive plainly now, without decoration, without metaphor, without trying to impress anyone. History keeps talking the same way it always has: flat, repetitive, and oddly comforting once you stop expecting it to be clever. After monarchies fade into background noise, the world does not suddenly become wiser, it becomes louder instead. Power spreads out, but it doesn't disappear. It changes shape, learns new vocabulary, adopts new uniforms, and insists very confidently that this time is different. It never is. Former royal families watch this transformation with mixed emotions. Some feel relieved that responsibility no longer sits on their shoulders like a physical weight. Others feel quietly offended that the world kept going without them. Being unnecessary is harder to process than being disliked. They attend state events as guests rather than hosts. They shake hands with people who once would have bowed. They smile at speeches that would have required their approval a century earlier. Everyone behaves politely, which somehow makes the loss sharper. Children born into these families grow up hearing two versions of reality: one told at home, full of past importance and inherited dignity; another told by the outside world, which treats them as mildly interesting trivia. Reconciling those versions takes time, sometimes a lifetime. Some descendants overcompensate. They chase relevance aggressively, media appearances. memoirs written too early, public opinions offered with confidence unsupported by expertise. Attention replaces authority, and not always gracefully. Others go the opposite direction. They reject the past entirely. They downplay family history. They insist on being ordinary, though the insistence itself often gives them away. Growing up surrounded by symbols leaves traces no matter how carefully you sweep. Sleep remains deep and even. This is not dramatic. It is just slow human adjustment playing out across generations. Old palaces become maintenance problems, roofs leak, stone erodes, heating bills grow unreasonable, governments argue about budgets, tourists continue arriving, wandering through rooms that once shaped lives and now exist mainly to be photographed. Guides tell stories with practiced neutrality. They soften cruelty. They simplify complexity. They choose anecdotes that fit into short attention spans. History becomes manageable, which is another way of saying incomplete. Behind the scenes, archivists continue their quiet work. Letters are catalogued, diaries transcribed, marginal notes preserved. The private thoughts of long-dead rulers become material for academic debate. It is a strange intimacy that never required consent. Sleep does not react. It accepts this as part of the pattern. As the 20th and 21st centuries unfold, new elites rise confidently: industrialists, politicians, media figures, technology founders. They repeat familiar behaviors with impressive efficiency. They isolate themselves. They marry within social circles. They raise children shielded from consequences. They insist their success is earned. They explain their advantages as merit. They speak about hard work without mentioning timing. History listens patiently. It has heard this speech before. Their children struggle in predictable ways: pressure without grounding, praise without boundaries, expectations without emotional support. Some thrive, many do not. Therapists replace priests. Medication replaces ritual. The underlying issues remain stubbornly consistent. Sleep continues, steady and unbothered. The idea that humanity evolves morally faster than it evolves socially proves optimistic. Tools improve. Communication accelerates. Power dynamics lag behind. Old instincts dressed in new logic continue directing behavior. People still gather at the top and convince themselves they deserve to be there. They still protect access. They still fear losing relevance more than they fear being wrong. The former royals watching all this feel a quiet recognition they rarely voice. The systems changed. The psychology did not. Some find comfort in that. Others find bitterness. Most simply observe. Their family histories, once politically sensitive, become academic curiosities. Charts displayed in textbooks. Examples cited in discussions of heredity and environment. The names lose their sting. The patterns remain instructive. Sleep stays deep. Breathing stays slow. The night moves on. Eventually, even the memory of living monarchy fades for most people. It becomes a concept rather than a presence, something learned in school, something referenced in fiction, something distant enough to feel unreal. Yet the emotional residue lingers: deference, fascination with status, the urge to elevate certain lives above others. These impulses survive comfortably without crowns. History never required monarchy to function. It simply used it as one of many containers for human behavior. Former royal families age out. New generations know the stories only vaguely. The weight lessens with time. Names become less recognizable. Faces blend into crowds more easily. And still the same questions persist quietly: who matters? Who decides? Who gets protected? Who gets blamed? Sleep does not answer. It never has. The body remains still. The night remains long. History continues its low, repetitive narration, unconcerned with novelty, content to let humans circle the same ideas while convincing themselves they're moving forward. The night carries on without ceremony, no shift in lighting, no change in temperature worth noting, just breath after breath, steady and unremarkable, the way humans have always rested best. The mind keeps moving, but slowly now, like it has nowhere urgent to be. History continues speaking because silence, apparently, makes people nervous. As time moves further away from crowns and thrones, something interesting happens. People stop arguing about whether monarchies were good or bad and start arguing about whether they were efficient. This is usually a sign that enough time has passed for emotional distance to set in. Efficiency becomes the safest lens. It avoids uncomfortable moral questions. Former royal names turn into brand labels. Hotels adopt them. Streets borrow them. Luxury products lean on the association. Prestige without responsibility sells very well. Descendants watch this with mixed feelings. Their family name decorates things they can't afford and decisions they don't control. It's a strange kind of legacy. Sleep stays deep. In universities, scholars dissect royal lives with impressive calm. They chart marriages, track illnesses, debate motivations. Footnotes multiply. Entire careers are built on analyzing why certain people behaved badly when given too much power too early. The conclusions are rarely surprising. Environment matters, pressure warps development, isolation distorts empathy, inheritance removes feedback loops. None of this feels revolutionary, it feels obvious, which is probably why it took so long to admit. Public fascination with royalty never fully disappears, it just softens, becomes aesthetic, costumes, accents, the illusion of order. People enjoy the fantasy of hierarchy without wanting to live under it. This is the safest way to consume power. Sleep remains uninterrupted. Modern elites adopt similar pageantry, just less explicit. Exclusive events, private schools, networks that quietly decide futures before individuals get a say. The mechanisms improve, the outcome stays familiar. Children raised at the top still struggle with the same quiet problems: lack of boundaries, fear of failure, confusion between approval and affection. They just have better vocabulary for it now. Therapy replaces confession, press releases replace proclamations, crisis management replaces divine justification. History nods. The old royal archives continue expanding as new material becomes available. Letters once sealed are published. Diaries reveal doubts that never reached the public. It turns out many rulers knew they were unprepared. They just didn't see a way out. Sleep holds steady. Some former royal descendants find relief in this knowledge. It reframes the past as tragedy rather than arrogance. Others find it unsettling. They preferred the myth. As centuries stack up, the emotional charge drains away. The figures flatten into examples, case studies, warnings wrapped in velvet and ceremony. The night remains quiet. People still argue about whether humanity is improving. The evidence remains mixed. Tools improve faster than wisdom. Systems scale faster than empathy. Mistakes repeat with higher production value. The need for belonging, however, stays remarkably stable. People still want to feel protected when they sleep, still want to trust that someone else is awake when they are not. The cave never really left, it just got better lighting. Sleep deepens without fanfare. In this state, the long arc of history feels less like a line and more like a habit. Humans try something, it works briefly, they repeat it too long, it stops working, they rename it and try again. Monarchy was one version, there will be others, there already are. Former royal families eventually blend into the background population. Genetics dilute, accents soften, the last physical traces fade quietly. What remains are stories, and even those lose their sharpness. The body remains still, the night remains patient. History continues, not loudly, not urgently, just present, reminding anyone willing to listen that humans are consistent creatures who change the surface while protecting the structure underneath. And somewhere between breaths, without effort or instruction, rest settles fully in, exactly the way it always has when nothing is being demanded. The hours stretch quietly, not in a dramatic way, just the slow, unbothered expansion of time that happens when nothing needs to be done. History keeps unfolding because that's what it does when no one interrupts it. The stories don't ask for attention. They simply continue, steady and unflashy. Royal families, even after losing crowns, rarely lose their habits. Titles fade first, then properties, then money, but the instincts linger much longer. A certain stiffness in posture, a reflexive belief that someone else will handle inconvenience, an expectation of being listened to even when no one is listening anymore. Former princes become slightly confused men with impressive surnames and no clear purpose. They enter business, politics, consultancy, anything that sounds important enough to justify their upbringing. Some do fine, others flounder quietly, supported by residual connections and polite indulgence. Former princesses often adapt better. They were trained from childhood to read rooms, manage emotions, and survive under observation. The skill set transfers surprisingly well. If nothing else, they know how to disappear gracefully when required. None of this feels urgent, it's just information passing by. The public, meanwhile, maintains a casual fascination with lineage. Family trees still sell books. DNA tests become entertainment. People want to know who descended from whom, even if it changes nothing, especially if it changes nothing. There's comfort in continuity, even dysfunctional continuity. Historians argue quietly about cause and effect. Did inbreeding cause instability, or did isolation create both? Was madness genetic, situational, or simply mislabeled behavior in a rigid system? The answer, predictably, is yes. Records show rulers suffering from what modern medicine would recognize instantly: anxiety disorders, chronic depression, autoimmune diseases, neurological conditions exacerbated by stress and poor diets. But at the time, explanations leaned spiritual or moral or just inconveniently vague. He was melancholic. She was delicate. The child was not suited for rule. These phrases solved nothing but sounded acceptable. As dynasties collapsed, replacement systems promised improvement, merit instead of inheritance, representation instead of bloodlines, accountability instead of divine right. Each promise arrived sincerely, each eventually bent under pressure. People discovered that concentrating power anywhere produces similar results, regardless of justification. Sleep remains unbroken. Modern institutions recreate court politics with different furniture. Boardrooms replace throne rooms. Media cycles replace proclamations. Reputation becomes currency. Access becomes power. Nothing truly disappears. It just updates its branding. The emotional experience remains familiar. Fear of irrelevance. Desire for validation. Avoidance of responsibility. The same internal weather, different architecture. Children born into influence today still struggle with distorted feedback, praise without effort, criticism without clarity, protection without preparation. It produces adults who look confident and feel hollow. The archives keep growing, digital now, faster, more complete. Future historians will have too much information instead of too little. They'll know what rulers ate, who they texted, how often they panicked at 3 in the morning. The mystery will shrink, the pattern will not. None of this needs emphasis. The long view smooths everything out. Personal tragedies blur into social trends. Individual cruelty becomes structural failure. Responsibility spreads thin enough to feel almost abstract. Royal scandals once shocked populations. Now they entertain, a steady background hum of disappointment. No one is surprised anymore. Disillusionment becomes a form of stability. People learn to expect less. Night continues doing what it does best, letting thoughts move without friction. Old palaces become museums. Visitors shuffle quietly through rooms designed to intimidate. They admire ceilings while ignoring how uncomfortable the spaces actually were. No insulation, no privacy, too much echo. Bedrooms larger than necessary, hallways longer than useful, everything built to impress someone who wasn't there anymore. Plaques explain which ruler slept where. dates, names, achievements, very little about insomnia or dread or the feeling of being trapped by history before you've had time to become a person. Docents smile politely, they've memorized the script. Some visitors feel a strange emptiness walking through these places. Others feel relief. The fantasy dissolves under fluorescent lighting. Power looks smaller up close. Across centuries, the idea of destiny loses its shine. What once felt inevitable now looks accidental. A series of decisions made by tired people trying to get through the day. Kings were not thinking about legacy when they signed documents at midnight. Queens were not pondering historical judgment while enduring political marriages. They were thinking about survival, comfort, control. Basic human motives dressed in expensive fabric. Sleep remains steady. The more history is studied, the less impressive authority becomes, not because it wasn't powerful, but because it was so ordinary in its fears. Even the most feared rulers worried about aging, about being replaced, about being remembered incorrectly. Some commissioned portraits to freeze themselves at their best angle. Others rewrote chronicles. A few simply drank more wine and hoped the problem would solve itself. It never did. Succession crises repeat with impressive consistency. Too many heirs, too few heirs, the wrong heir, the popular one, the competent one, the one everyone hates. None of it produces lasting peace. People sleep through these realizations without resistance. They don't need to be acted on right now. They can just exist. History, when stripped of drama, becomes soothing in its predictability. Systems rise, systems strain, systems fail. New systems borrow the same flaws and try again. Individuals matter less than they think. Structures matter more than anyone wants to admit. This thought settles without discomfort. It explains a lot. Royal bloodlines dissolve quietly into the general population. Somewhere, a person with no interest in history carries a fragment of a dynasty that once claimed divine authority. They worry about rent. They forget birthdays. They live entirely unremarkable lives. And the world continues, unchanged by their ancestry. The lesson never announces itself. It just sits there, patient, waiting for anyone who feels like noticing. The fire has burned down to a steady, thoughtful glow. Not flames anymore, just coals breathing softly, red and patient, like they know the night is theirs now. No one rushes anything. There is no reason to. The cave holds the warmth well, the stone remembering every fire that came before this one. People shift positions slowly, a shoulder rolls, a leg stretches, someone coughs once and then settles again. No one comments on it. Sounds like that belong to the night. The cave people do not think of themselves as cave people. They are simply people. This is where they live. These are their walls. This is their ceiling. The rock curves overhead like a familiar sky that never changes. Outside, the real sky does whatever it wants. Here, things are predictable. An elder sits closest to the embers, eyes half closed, hands resting on knees worn smooth by decades of work. The firelight catches the lines in the skin, deep and unmoving, carved by sun and wind and time. No one interrupts. When elders speak, they speak because they have decided the moment is right. Children lie piled together, a tangle of limbs and furs and slow breathing. One twitches slightly, chasing something only visible in dreams. Another curls closer to warmth without waking. No one worries. Children sleep deeply when they feel safe. The hunters have already checked their weapons for the morning. Spears leaned carefully where they can be reached in the dark. Stone edges cleaned, not sharp enough to cut accidentally, but sharp enough to matter when needed. Everything has its place. Disorder wastes energy. A woman near the wall continues working with quiet hands. The bone needle moves in and out of hide with practiced ease. She doesn't look at what she's doing. She doesn't need to. Her fingers know this work better than her eyes ever could. A small tear becomes a line, then disappears entirely. Clothing matters, not for beauty, not for status, but for survival. A loose seam lets in cold. Cold steals strength. Strength keeps you alive. The logic is simple and unforgiving. Someone adds a single piece of wood to the fire, not too much, just enough. Fire is precious, waste is remembered. Stories are not being told now. This part of the evening is for quieter things, reflection, preparation. The mind slows down when the body finally stops moving. A man stares into the coals, watching shapes form and dissolve. Animals appear and vanish, paths open and close. He doesn't interpret them, he simply watches. Fire has always held attention like this. It doesn't demand thought, it absorbs it. The cave walls glow faintly. Old markings catch the light, lines of ochre, handprints layered over older handprints. Some belong to people long gone, some to people whose names are still spoken. No one distinguishes much between the two. The dead are not far away here, they are just quieter. A soft sound begins near the back of the cave. Not a song exactly, more like a hum, low, steady. It blends into the crackle of embers and the rhythm of breathing. No one asks for it to stop. No one joins in loudly. A few voices match it softly, barely noticeable. This is not performance. It is regulation. Sound keeps fear away. Sound reminds the body it is not alone. Outside something moves, a distant sound, maybe wind, maybe something else. Heads lift slightly, ears listen. Then the moment passes, no alarm, no panic. Awareness fades back into rest. The cave people have learned what deserves attention and what does not. Constant fear wastes energy. Ignoring real danger ends lives. Balance is learned slowly, one night at a time. A child stirs and whimpers softly. A parent reaches out without opening their eyes, resting a hand on the small back. The whimper fades. Contact solves many problems before they become problems. Sleep does not arrive all at once. It moves through the group gradually, like water soaking into dry ground. Some people are already deep under. Others linger at the edge, thoughts drifting in slow loops. One woman thinks about the plants she will gather tomorrow. She runs through locations in her mind. Which slope faces the morning sun? Which patch was thinned too much last season? Memory is her map. There is no need to write anything down. An older man thinks about a hunt that went wrong years ago. Not with regret, just checking the lesson again, making sure it's still intact. The memory has sharp edges, but they are familiar ones. Another person thinks about nothing at all, just warmth, just breathing. The cave itself seems to listen. Stone does that. It absorbs sound, holds it, releases it slowly. Every laugh, every cry, every whispered plan from generations past is still somewhere in the rock, not as memory, as presence. Someone adjusts a fur, careful not to wake anyone nearby. Movements are economical. Big gestures are unnecessary at night. Firelight pulses gently. The coals shift and settle, collapsing inward with a faint sigh. No one reacts. This sound means stability. The night stretches longer. Time is not measured here. There is no counting, no urgency. Darkness lasts as long as it lasts. Sleep ends when light returns. A young adult lies awake longer than the others, watching shadows on the wall. They are almost old enough to be considered fully grown, almost ready to take on new responsibilities. The thought carries weight, but not dread. Everyone before them has done this. Everyone after will too. Their body feels strong, tired but strong. Muscles ache in a satisfying way. Food sits warm and heavy in the stomach. This is what a good day feels like. The future does not stretch far. Tomorrow exists. The next season exists. Anything beyond that is unnecessary speculation. Survival happens close to the present moment. A breeze brushes the cave entrance. It cools the air just enough to be noticed. Someone closer to the opening pulls a fur tighter. The cave remains protected. The hum fades. Silence returns, but it is not empty. It is layered, breathing, embers. Distant night sounds softened by stone. Sleep deepens. Dreams begin quietly, not elaborate stories. Simple images, running, carrying, hands working stone, faces close to the fire, dreams made of the same material as the day. No one dreams of things they have never seen. There is no room for that. The fire continues its slow, reliable work, providing warmth, holding the dark at a respectful distance. Fire is not worshipped exactly, but it is respected. Without it, the cave would feel very different. A person assigned to fire watch stirs briefly, eyes opening just enough to check the glow. Satisfied, they settle again. Responsibility does not require full wakefulness, just awareness. The group remains intact. No one has wandered. No one is missing. This matters more than anything else. Night presses on, gentle and firm. The cave holds, the people rest. Tomorrow will come when it comes. The night keeps going, unbothered by how long it has already been here. Darkness is not something to defeat. It is simply the other half of the day. The cave understands this. It was shaped by time that did not hurry. Most of the band sleeps deeply now. Bodies are still, heavy with warmth and food. Breathing has synchronized into a loose rhythm, not identical, but compatible, like many small waves sharing the same water. This is what safety sounds like. The fire no longer flickers much. It glows, a low red heart pressed into ash and charcoal. It gives just enough light to soften the dark, not enough to wake anyone fully. Fire at this stage is not for activity, it is for reassurance. An elder wakes briefly, no reason, just age. Sleep becomes lighter over time. The body checks the world more often. He listens without moving, cataloging sounds the way he has done for decades. Breathing, stone shifting as it cools. A distant animal call far enough away to be irrelevant. Satisfied, he closes his eyes again. Memory drifts through him, not as a story, not with words, just impressions, other caves, other fires, people whose voices he can no longer recall clearly, but whose presence still feels solid. Loss exists here, but it is not sharp. It has been integrated. Nearby, a young child sleeps with a hand curled into a parent's clothing, fingers gripping instinctively even in dreams. The parent does not notice. They don't need to. The contact is mutual, constant, assumed. Bodies are arranged with quiet logic. Stronger adults nearer the edges. Children and elders closer to the warmth and light. Not discussed, not debated. Learned over generations through trial and consequence. Outside, the night world moves with its own confidence. Creatures that do not fear darkness go about their business. The cave people do not envy them. Day belongs to humans, night belongs to something else. Fire is the agreement that allows overlap. A hunter dreams of running, not chasing, being chased. The dream is familiar. It does not frighten him. It sharpens something. His legs twitch once, then relax. The dream resolves without drama. Another dreams of water, a stream remembered from childhood, cold, clear, safe. The image fades into warmth. Dreams here do not linger long after waking. They are not analyzed. They are part of the body's work, not the mind's. Time stretches. The cave roof creaks faintly as temperatures outside shift. Stone expands and contracts slowly, like something breathing in its own deep rhythm. The sound is familiar enough to be ignored. Unfamiliar sounds are the ones that matter. A woman rolls onto her other side, careful even while asleep. Years of sharing limited space train the body to move economically. Elbows stay close, knees tuck in, no one is disturbed. Somewhere near the entrance, the air smells different, cooler, wetter, a sign that morning will come eventually, not yet, but later. There is no anxiety about it. Dawn always arrives. It has never failed within living memory. The fire watcher wakes again, this time adding a small piece of wood with practiced precision. No sparks, no sudden flare, just maintenance. Responsibility performed quietly is the most valued kind. Ash shifts, coals brighten briefly, then settle. The glow strengthens, then returns to its steady state. The watcher does not sit upright. There is no need. Half awake is enough. Overvigilance wastes strength. Undervigilance costs lives. Balance again, always balance. The cave people have no word for comfort, but they understand it completely. Warmth, full stomachs, familiar smells, the nearness of others. These conditions produce rest. Rest produces survival. Another elder dreams of teaching, hands getting smaller hands, showing how to strike stone at the right angle. The dream blends past and future without distinction. Knowledge does not belong to one person, it passes through them. The firelight reaches the cave paintings again, briefly illuminating a line of animals moving across stone. Their shapes seem to shift as shadows move. It is easy to imagine them walking. No one thinks this is strange. Art here is not decoration. It is memory made visible. A young adult stirs, drifting closer to waking than sleep. Thoughts begin forming, slow and incomplete. Tomorrow's tasks float up, checking traps, gathering, helping repair a spear shaft that cracked earlier. None of it feels heavy. Tasks are not burdens when they are shared. The body signals readiness. Muscles feel recovered, joints feel usable. Hunger is faint, not urgent. Everything is where it should be. The smell of smoke clings to hair, skin, furs. It is not unpleasant. It is identity. Fire smell means home. A distant howl echoes across the land, far enough to be informational, not threatening. A reminder that others are awake while the cave sleeps. No one reacts beyond a brief tightening of breath that quickly loosens again. The children do not hear it. Their sleep is too deep. This is intentional. Adults carry awareness so children do not have to. The night begins its slow withdrawal, though no one perceives it yet. Darkness does not lift all at once. It thins gradually, like fog dispersing without announcement. The fire burns lower again. The cycle continues. Breathing remains steady. The cave remains full. No absence, no urgency. The darkness begins to loosen its grip, though no one names it yet. It happens quietly, without announcement. The cave does not brighten so much as soften. Shadows lose their sharp edges. The air feels slightly different against skin. Most of the group remains asleep. Their bodies sense change before their minds do. Breathing shifts subtly, becoming a little lighter, a little quicker. Sleep thins without breaking. The fire is almost done working. Its glow is faint now, a suggestion rather than a presence. It has done its job. No one expects more from it tonight. An elder wakes again, this time staying awake. He sits without standing, careful of joints that remember too many winters. His eyes adjust slowly, trained by years of dawns that arrive like this. He listens. Morning sounds are different from night sounds. They have more space between them. Outside, the land pauses. Animals that moved freely in darkness settle. Others prepare to emerge. The shift is delicate, balanced on instinct rather than decision. The elder rubs his hands together once, quietly. Warmth returns slowly. He does not reach for the fire. He knows it will not answer much longer. Instead, he waits. Nearby, a woman stirs. Her eyes open briefly, then close again. The body checks the world, decides it is still safe, and returns to rest. Children begin to move more, small adjustments, knees uncurling, hands stretching. Sleep releases them in stages, dreams thin and dissolve without resistance. The cave holds onto darkness longer than the open land. Stone protects, but it also delays. Light will come here last, filtering in carefully, respectful of the night that ruled before it. A hunter wakes fully and remains still, letting awareness spread slowly. Sudden movement wastes energy. He takes inventory without moving, arms present, legs working, no pain worth noting. Good. He listens, breathing around him, no distress, the group intact. This knowledge settles him more deeply than sleep ever could. Someone near the entrance yawns, a long silent stretch of jaw and neck. Muscles extend, then relax. The day begins in the body before it begins in the world. The smell of night lingers. Smoke, fur, stone, a hint of damp earth from outside. It is the same smell every morning and yet always slightly different. The fire watcher wakes last, blinking into the dimness. Their duty is finished. No acknowledgement is given. Duties end as quietly as they begin. Movement increases slowly. Someone sits up. Another rolls onto their back and stares at the cave ceiling, tracing familiar cracks with tired eyes. These cracks have names, though they are never spoken aloud. The cave walls show their true colors now, less red, more gray. The paintings fade back into stillness, animals returning to stone. A young adult finally rises to a sitting position, stretching arms overhead with controlled effort. Bones shift softly. No one complains. Bodies here are used to work. Sound does not alarm. Food thoughts begin to surface. Not hunger yet. Planning, who will eat first, who will wait, what needs to be prepared. Someone reaches for a water skin and takes a small drink, careful not to empty it. Water is shared. It is never assumed to belong to one person. Outside, light begins to reach the cave entrance. Not sunlight yet, just a pale suggestion. The boundary between inside and outside becomes visible again. This is when quiet speech begins, not conversation, just murmurs, short exchanges, information passed gently, who slept poorly, who needs to move slowly today. A child sits up suddenly, awake all at once, eyes wide and alert. Morning has arrived for them fully. They look around, reassured immediately by familiar faces. The parent smiles faintly, still half asleep. Children wake loudly, adults wake gradually, both are accepted. Someone stands, stretching fully now, arms wide, chest open. The movement is unremarkable but necessary. The body claims space again after hours of stillness. The cave feels smaller once everyone is awake, not crowded, just full of movement, full of intention. Tasks begin to arrange themselves without instruction. A group will go out soon, another will stay, tools will be checked again, yesterday's work reviewed. No one speaks of the night. Surviving it is assumed. Talking about it would give it more importance than it deserves. The fire is addressed at last. Ash is spread carefully. Coals are separated and preserved. Fire does not disappear. It is stored. Tomorrow's flame waits inside today's remains. Light reaches farther into the cave now, touching faces clearly. Lines become visible. Expressions settle into their waking forms. A woman laughs softly at something a child does, not loud, just enough. Sound returns to the space in measured amounts. The elder rises slowly, using a stone for support. Younger hands hover nearby without touching. Assistance is offered without being forced. He nods once, accepted. The outside world calls gently now. Birds, wind, distant movement. The cave does not resist. It has done its job. People begin to move toward the entrance, blinking as light meets their eyes. The transition is careful. Too much light too fast is unpleasant. The air outside feels cooler, fresher. Breathing deepens. The body recognizes the day fully now. Those remaining inside begin organizing the space. Sleeping furs folded. Tools return to their places. Order is restored without thought. A child runs a hand along the cave wall as they pass, fingers tracing stone unconsciously. Touch connects them to the place. The elder steps outside last, pausing at the threshold. He looks out, not scanning for danger, just acknowledging the land. It has not changed overnight. That is good. The sun has not risen yet, but it will. The day waits patiently. Behind him, the cave grows quiet again, ready to hold stillness until night returns. The light outside grows with no concern for who is ready to receive it. It spreads evenly, touching stone, grass, skin, fur, the edges of tools left where hands last released them. No one rushes. Rushing wastes energy, and energy is survival shaped into habit. The group steps into the morning one by one, feet finding familiar ground without needing to look down. This land has been walked so often, it feels like an extension of the body, every uneven patch memorized through muscle rather than thought. Breathing deepens naturally. Cold air enters lungs and wakes the last sleeping corners of the mind. The smell of the world at this hour is clean and sharp, untouched by heat or movement. Dew clings to plants. Insects remain still. The day has not yet begun to argue with itself. The hunters pause just outside the cave, standing close enough that warmth from the stone still reaches them. They do not speak yet. Words come after listening. One tilts his head slightly, reading distant sounds. Another squints toward the tree line, not searching for danger, but confirming patterns. Everything appears normal, which is information in itself. Those staying behind move with a different rhythm. A woman kneels near a flat stone and begins sorting plant fibers gathered the day before. Her hands know what to do without instruction. Fingers separate useful strands from waste, placing each pile carefully. This work does not require focus the way hunting does, but it requires patience, which is its own skill. Children drift between adults, awake now, curious, observant. They are not told to be quiet, but they learn it naturally, sensing the tone of the morning. One crouches to watch an ant carry something impossibly large. The ant does not notice the attention. It has work. The elder sits on a low stone where sunlight reaches him first. Warmth spreads slowly across his back. He closes his eyes briefly, not sleeping, just receiving. His body has earned this moment. No one questions it. A young hunter checks the edge of his stone blade again, running a thumb along it carefully. Not enough pressure to cut, just enough to feel readiness. He nods to himself, satisfied. Tools are extensions of intention. Broken tools mean broken plans. Food preparation begins quietly. A small fire is coaxed from preserved coals. It takes time. Breath feeds ember. Ember becomes flame. Flame becomes possibility. The process is unhurried because it must be correct. Fire is patient only when treated with respect. Someone hums softly without realizing it. No melody meant to be shared, just sound filling space while hands move. It stops naturally when attention shifts. No one comments. The hunters gather closer now, speaking in low tones, short sentences, directions, agreements made without argument. Each knows their role already, but saying it aloud aligns the group. They will move east first, then circle back toward water. Tracks were seen yesterday. Memory guides feet forward. The group separates gradually rather than abruptly. Hunters move away, not in a straight line, blending into the land. Those remaining return attention inward, toward the cave and the tasks that keep it alive. Time stretches, the sun climbs slowly, warming the ground, shadows shorten. The cave entrance glows brighter, though the interior remains cool and dark. This contrast is comforting. Balance is visible here. A woman teaches a child how to twist fibers tighter, correcting gently with hands rather than words. The child imitates, fails, tries again. Learning happens through repetition, not explanation. Nearby, another adult shapes a piece of wood, scraping patiently, removing thin curls that fall and collect near his feet. The shape emerges gradually. There is no rush to finish. The object will be ready when it is ready. The elder watches all of this without staring. His attention moves like drifting smoke, touching each task briefly before floating on. This is his work now, remembering, witnessing, carrying the shape of the group in his mind. Outside, birds begin to move more actively. Sound increases. Life asserts itself gently. The world does not explode into motion. It unfolds. Children grow louder as confidence returns with full daylight. Laughter appears briefly, then fades. Play exists alongside work here, not separate from it. Running strengthens legs. Games teach awareness. No one needs to label it. The fire grows stronger, heat radiating outward. Food is placed carefully, turned at the right moments. Smell changes, signaling progress. Hunger responds. Stomachs awaken fully now. Someone brings water again, sharing it evenly. The skin feels cooler after the drink. Balance returns. Hours pass without being counted. No one tracks time in numbers. The sun's position is enough. When it reaches a certain height, some tasks stop and others begin. This rhythm is internalized long before adulthood. The hunters return slowly, visible first as movement, then as familiar shapes. They are not empty-handed. Success is modest but sufficient. No celebration. Relief shows in shoulders relaxing, in quiet smiles exchanged. Work resumes immediately. What is brought back must be processed, preserved, respected. Nothing here is wasted casually. Life given is acknowledged through care. As the sun moves westward, energy shifts again. Bodies slow slightly, tasks become less demanding. Preparation replaces exertion. The cave waits patiently, ready to receive the group again when light fades. Stone holds the coolness of night and the memory of countless returns like this one. No one announces the coming evening. It arrives the same way it always has, gradually, predictably, without needing permission. And as shadows lengthen and sound softens once more, the group moves instinctively back toward shelter, carrying with them the quiet certainty that the day has been lived fully, without excess, without haste, exactly as intended. The light begins to tilt rather than fade, stretching shadows until they reach places they did not touch earlier, reminding the land that day never truly owns it. Movement slows without instruction. Muscles feel the shift before minds label it. Tools are set down more often now. Hands rest on hips. Backs straighten and then relax again. The work of surviving the day gives way to the work of preparing for night. The hunters finish their final tasks near the fire, cutting carefully, separating what will be eaten soon from what must be saved. Their movements are practiced, almost gentle, not out of sentiment, but efficiency. Rushing now would undo hours of effort. Fatigue invites mistakes. No one wants that. Children drift closer to the adults, their earlier energy thinning into softer motion. One leans against a familiar leg without asking. Another sits on the ground and traces patterns in dust with a stick, absorbed, quiet. Evening pulls everyone inward. The elder rises again, joints protesting briefly before settling. He moves closer to the fire, extending hands toward warmth that has become reliable once more. Flames flicker higher now, fed properly, no longer fragile. The fire answers with steady light. Food is shared without ceremony. Portions are not equal, but they are fair. Those who worked hardest receive more. Those who need more receive it too. No one counts. Eyes do the measuring. Eating is unhurried. Chewing slows. Conversation remains minimal, limited to short comments and acknowledgements. This is not the time for instruction or planning. This is recovery. The sky outside deepens in color. Blues darken. The first stars hesitate into view, faint but present. Someone notices and tilts their head upward briefly, then returns to eating. The stars will still be there later. Smoke drifts upward and clings to stone before escaping into open air. The smell settles into clothing, hair, skin. It is familiar, comforting. It signals safety to the body in ways language never could. After eating, hands are cleaned with water and rough cloth. Tools are wiped down. Blades are inspected once more. Preparedness never sleeps fully. A woman adjusts a child's fur wrap, tucking it tighter without waking them. The child has already drifted into half sleep, head heavy against her side. Evening works quickly on the young. The cave interior grows more active as people return inside. Shadows dance on walls as firelight replaces daylight. The painted animals reappear, moving again as flames flicker. They are never commented on, but they are noticed. Someone adds another piece of wood to the fire, carefully positioned. Sparks rise briefly, then settle. The fire accepts the offering and grows calmer. Voices lower further now. Even laughter, when it appears, is brief and muted, as if the night itself has requested quiet. The elder speaks a few words, not loudly, not for everyone, just enough to be heard by those nearby. It is a reminder of where the hunters will go tomorrow, of where water was last seen. Information passes like this, woven into rest rather than announced. Children shift positions, curling closer together, limbs tangling naturally. Warmth is shared without thought. The cave feels smaller again, not from crowding but from closeness. Bodies settle into familiar arrangements. Everyone has a place, even if that place shifts slightly each night. Outside, the world cools. Nocturnal sounds begin cautiously, testing the dark. Inside, the fire stands firm, a boundary drawn in light. A young adult stares into the flames longer than necessary, thoughts moving slower than usual. The day replays briefly, then dissolves. Tomorrow can wait. Someone yawns widely, unashamed. Yawning spreads quietly. One body gives permission for another to follow. The fire watcher prepares for the night, positioning themselves where heat is strongest and visibility widest. They settle in without complaint. This role rotates. Tonight, it is theirs. Furs are arranged, stone is cleared, sleeping spaces take shape quickly. The cave knows this routine. Breathing patterns begin to synchronize again, deep inhales, long exhales. The body recognizes safety and responds accordingly. The fire crackles softly, not demanding attention. Its rhythm blends with breath, with heartbeats, with the subtle shifting of sleeping forms. Eyes close gradually, no one forces sleep. It arrives when it is ready. The elder is among the last to settle, leaning back against stone, eyes half-lidded, listening. The sounds reassure him, all present, all alive. Outside, darkness fully claims the land. Inside, light holds its ground. And so the cycle completes itself once more, not marked by ceremony or reflection, but by the quiet understanding that this is how nights are meant to arrive, gently, predictably, carrying the group back into rest the same way it has for countless generations before them. The fire settles into a steady rhythm, no longer lively, no longer weak, just present, doing the simple work it has always done, holding darkness at a respectful distance without trying to defeat it. The cave breathes differently now, cooler near the walls, warmer near the center, a gentle gradient the body understands without thinking. Sleep spreads unevenly, some already deep and distant, others hovering in that quiet place where thoughts still drift but no longer demand answers. The fire watcher remains awake, posture relaxed but alert, eyes moving slowly, not searching for danger so much as confirming continuity. The shapes in the cave are familiar, memorized through repetition, each body placed where it belongs, each outline reassuring. Nothing has changed since the last glance, and that is exactly what they want to see. A child murmurs in sleep, a soft sound that fades before it fully forms. No one reacts. Dreams pass through young minds like weather, brief and unimportant once they move on. The parent nearby shifts slightly, a reflex more than a decision, arm adjusting to provide warmth without waking. Outside, the night deepens. The sky stretches wide and dark, stars now fully visible, scattered unevenly, no patterns yet named, just light against endless black. The land cools further, releasing the heat it borrowed during the day. Leaves settle. Insects take over the soundscape in small, steady pulses. Inside the cave, breathing grows slower, more synchronized. Each inhale draws warmth inward. Each exhale releases the day completely. Muscles soften, hands unclench. The body lets go of its vigilance one layer at a time. The elder drifts in and out of light sleep, awareness fading and returning gently. He does not fight it. Sleep here is not something to be controlled. It is something to be allowed. His mind wanders briefly through memories of other nights like this one, different fires, different faces, the same stone, the same dark. The pattern comforts him. The fire watcher shifts positions slightly, redistributing weight, careful not to disturb anyone. The movement is slow and deliberate. A quick motion would feel wrong in this hour. The fire responds with a quiet crackle, acknowledging the presence. Someone on the far side of the cave turns over, furs rustling softly. The sound fades quickly, absorbed by stone and distance. No one stirs in response. Sleep holds firm. Time stretches and loses definition. Minutes and hours blur together. There is no need to track them. Night is not something to be measured. It is something to pass through. The fire burns lower now, flames retreating, leaving glowing coals that pulse faintly like a slow heartbeat. Heat remains, steady and sufficient. Light dims but does not vanish. Shadows deepen, but shapes remain readable. The fire watcher leans forward briefly, nudging a piece of wood into a better position. Sparks rise and vanish. The fire settles again, satisfied. The task is complete. A breeze passes near the cave entrance, cool air slipping inside for a moment before retreating. It carries the scent of night plants and distant water. The cave accepts it, then closes itself again. Sleep deepens further. Dreams become quieter, less visual, more emotional, fragments of feeling rather than scenes. The mind rests in a simpler state, closer to instinct than narrative. The elder's breathing evens out completely now. His head tilts slightly, resting against stones smoothed by generations of the same motion. The rock holds him without complaint. The fire watcher blinks slowly, eyes heavy but steady. This role is familiar. They have done it before. They know when to fight sleep and when to let it come closer. The balance is learned through repetition. Outside, an animal calls briefly, a distant sound that echoes faintly before fading. Inside, no one reacts. The cave is trusted. The fire is trusted. Trust allows sleep to remain intact. The child shifts again, nestling deeper into furs, breath warm and rhythmic. The parent's hand rests lightly nearby, not gripping, just present. The cave walls glow softly where firelight reaches them. Painted figures seem to watch over the group, silent and unmoving, guardians made of memory and pigment. The fire watcher allows their eyes to close for a moment, then opens them again, testing the edge of sleep. The fire remains stable. The group remains still. All is well. Hours pass unnoticed. The night moves overhead, stars wheeling slowly, unseen by those resting below. The world continues its quiet work without requiring attention. The fire reduces itself further, flames surrendering to embers. Light dims but warmth lingers. This is the deepest part of the night, when the world feels furthest away and the body sinks fully into rest. The fire watcher finally allows themselves to sleep more deeply, trusting the balance they have set. Their posture remains upright enough to wake if needed, but the mind lets go. The cave is filled now with nothing but breath, warmth, and the faint sound of embers settling. The boundary between self and group blurs. Individual awareness dissolves into shared stillness. Dreams drift through the space like smoke, intangible, overlapping, harmless. No one remembers them for long. The night holds everything gently, without pressure, without expectation, the same way it always has, the same way it always will, until light returns again, quietly, without asking permission. The cave settles into its quietest state, a stillness so complete it feels physical, pressing gently against skin and thought alike, smoothing everything down until even the idea of effort fades away. The air cools just enough to encourage bodies to draw closer, not consciously, just through instinct refined over countless nights like this one. Furs shift slightly as heat redistributes itself, shared without negotiation. The fire is mostly memory now, a low bed of embers glowing faintly, breathing light in slow pulses that match the rhythm of the sleepers. It no longer crackles. It does not need to announce itself. Its presence is understood. Breathing fills the space in overlapping layers, some deep and heavy, others lighter, quicker, each pattern distinct yet harmonious. Together they form a steady background sound, more reliable than any spoken reassurance. The elder dreams without images, drifting through sensations instead. Warmth, weight, familiar pressure against his back, the sense of being exactly where he belongs. His body remembers nights spent farther from shelter, colder fires, thinner sleep. This night compares favorably. Nearby, a young hunter sleeps deeply, muscles finally releasing the tension held through the day. His hands curl loosely now, no longer shaped around tools or plans. Tomorrow exists, but it does not intrude. A child's breathing stutters briefly, then smooths out again. Dreams shift. The moment passes without waking. Outside, the land moves through its own quiet cycle. Animals cross paths beneath the stars. Wind brushes grass and stone. The night does not pause just because humans rest. It accommodates them. Inside, the cave walls absorb sound and return it softened. Stone that has heard thousands of nights like this one offers no judgment, only shelter. The fire watcher remains asleep now, posture unchanged, awareness low but ready. Their body has learned how to listen even while resting. This knowledge lives deeper than thought. Time stretches further, thinning until it loses meaning entirely. There is no before or after here, just this long, continuous moment of rest. A faint drip of water echoes somewhere deep within the cave, irregular but gentle. It has been dripping for longer than anyone remembers. It will continue long after this night ends. Someone sighs softly in sleep, a long release of breath that signals comfort rather than distress. No one responds, none is needed. The embers dim further, light retreating until shadows merge completely. The cave becomes a single unified darkness, not empty, but full, layered with presence. Bodies adjust once more as temperature dips slightly. A shoulder presses closer to a familiar side. A leg shifts to share warmth. These movements happen without waking, guided by instinct older than language. Dreams across the group drift into similar territory, shaped by shared experience. The cave, the fire, the land, safety, dreams here do not wander far. The elder's breathing deepens even more, slow and even, his chest rising and falling like the embers themselves. His long life has taught him when to let go completely. This is one of those times. The cave feels suspended, as if held between worlds, not fully asleep, not awake, simply existing. Outside, clouds pass slowly across the stars, dimming and revealing them again. The sky moves on its own schedule. Inside, nothing needs to move. The fire finally reaches its lowest state, a few stubborn coals glowing softly, holding warmth without light. They are enough. The group rests in full trust now, the kind of trust built only through repetition and survival, through nights that ended well, one after another. No one dreams of danger, no one dreams of loss. The mind, like the body, chooses rest over rehearsal. The cave breathes with them, stone cooling, air circulating gently, space adjusting to its occupants. This is the deepest part of the night, when even the idea of waking feels distant and abstract, when sleep stops being an action and becomes a state of being. Hours pass unnoticed. The stars continue their slow arc. Somewhere beyond the cave, the world prepares itself for light again. Inside, the sleepers remain unaware, held in the quiet certainty that this place, this moment, is enough. The night stretches itself thin without breaking, holding the cave in a slow, steady suspension where nothing demands attention and nothing feels unfinished. The kind of quiet that does not feel empty but full, layered with breath and warmth, and the memory of movement that has temporarily paused. Bodies remain settled where they last shifted, weight distributed comfortably, contact maintained where it happened to land, because closeness is not negotiated here, it is assumed, a basic structure of rest rather than an emotional gesture. The embers continue their patient work, dim pulses of heat radiating outward in barely visible waves, enough to keep chill from settling too deeply, enough to reassure sleeping bodies that the boundary between safety and cold still exists. No sparks rise now. The fire has moved beyond display and into endurance. Breathing remains the loudest sound in the cave, layered and uneven, but never chaotic, a collection of individual rhythms overlapping into something shared, something that would sound unfamiliar to an outsider but feels perfectly ordered to those inside it. Each inhale draws the cave inward. Each exhale releases it again. The elder stirs slightly, not waking, just adjusting, his shoulder shifting against stone polished smooth by countless similar movements over generations. His mind floats somewhere between awareness and dream, touching fragments of sensation rather than images, warmth on skin, pressure at his back, the faint smell of smoke that never fully leaves. His body remembers colder nights, harder ground, longer hunger, and settles deeper into gratitude without numbing it. Across the cave, a hunter's leg twitches briefly, a remnant of movement carried over from the day, muscles replaying effort before finally letting it dissolve. The twitch passes, stillness returns. Children remain deeply asleep, their rest uncomplicated, dreams shallow and quick to pass, their bodies growing quietly in the dark, fed by food eaten earlier and the safety that surrounds them now. One child exhales sharply, then sighs, the sound soft and contented. Outside, the world continues its unseen motion, animals passing through the dark with careful steps, wind shifting directions slowly, clouds rearranging themselves across the stars. None of this reaches the cave in any urgent way. Stone filters the night, allowing only what is necessary to enter. Inside, the fire watcher sleeps fully now, posture unchanged, awareness lowered but not absent, a balance learned over many nights of responsibility. Their body remains angled toward the embers, ready to wake if heat shifts or sound changes, though no such change comes. Time loosens further, stretching so thin it nearly disappears, leaving behind only sensation and breath. No one here measures hours. The night is not something to divide, it is something to move through. A faint sound echoes once from deeper within the cave, water dripping against stone, a slow, irregular rhythm that has no beginning and no end, older than memory, older than the people sleeping beside it. The sound does not disturb, it belongs. Bodies shift again as temperature dips slightly, the cave releasing some of the warmth it held earlier. Furs are drawn closer unconsciously, a shoulder presses against another, a knee finds a familiar curve. Heat redistributes itself without discussion. The embers dim further, their glow barely visible now unless watched directly, but warmth remains, stored in stone, in fur, in bodies gathered close. Fire does not need to be seen to be felt. Dreams thin out, becoming less structured, more like drifting sensations than stories, fragments of movement and comfort, the sense of being held, of belonging somewhere that does not ask questions. Minds rest closer to instinct now, closer to the simple awareness of being alive and safe. The elder's breathing slows even more long, steady cycles that mirror the cave's own slow exchange of air. His chest rises and falls gently, each breath taken without effort, each release complete. Someone turns their head slightly, cheek pressing into fur, seeking warmth rather than air. The motion stops as soon as it begins. Comfort is found. The cave feels almost weightless in this moment, as if the stone itself has relaxed, no longer pressing inward, no longer holding tension. Darkness is complete but not heavy. It wraps rather than encloses. Outside, the stars continue their slow migration across the sky, unseen and unremarked, marking time that no one inside needs to know. The land cools to its lowest point, grass is stiff with cold, stones releasing the last of the day's warmth. Inside, the group rests at the deepest level, the point where waking would feel foreign, where thought has little traction, where the body governs completely. The embers reach their lowest glow, a few stubborn points of light holding on quietly, refusing to vanish entirely. They are enough to carry warmth until morning. Breathing remains steady, the cave remains still, the night holds without effort. Nothing here anticipates the future. Tomorrow does not intrude, memory does not demand attention. The present stretches comfortably in all directions. And somewhere beyond the cave walls, far beyond awareness, the faintest hint of change begins to gather, not light yet, not sound, just the slow turning of the world toward another day. While inside, untouched by urgency, the sleepers remain exactly where they are, held in rest, held in warmth, held in the long, unbroken rhythm that has carried nights like this for as long as humans have needed sleep. The night loosens almost imperceptibly, not through light, but through a subtle shift in the air, a change so small it registers first in the body rather than the mind, a faint easing of cold, a softness at the edge of breath that suggests the world has begun turning again. No one wakes yet. Sleep holds firm, deep and unbroken, rooted in trust, built over countless nights that ended safely. The embers give one last faint glow, not bright enough to cast shadows, just enough to remind the cave that warmth has not abandoned it. Stone holds that warmth carefully, releasing it slowly, evenly, the way it always has. Breathing continues in layered rhythms, some bodies sinking deeper into rest, others hovering closer to waking without crossing the threshold. Dreams thin further, becoming almost weightless, brief impressions that dissolve as soon as they form. The elder stirs slightly, not opening his eyes, sensing change without understanding it yet. His body has learned this hour over a lifetime of mornings. Something is different, but there is no need to respond. Not yet. Outside, the land shifts its posture. Night animals retreat. Day creatures wait. The sky lightens at its lowest edge, a faint pale line far beyond the cave entrance, unnoticed by those sleeping inside. Inside, the fire watcher remains asleep, head tilted slightly forward, breath slow and steady. Responsibility has passed quietly from conscious thought to instinct. A child exhales and stretches, limbs extending briefly before curling back in, comfort found again without waking. Growth happens silently here, layered into rest. The cave feels less dense now, as if darkness itself has thinned, though nothing visible has changed. Air moves differently, carrying the faintest trace of the outside world, cool and clean. Someone turns onto their side, seeking warmth rather than avoiding it now, bodies adjusting automatically as the balance of heat shifts. Furs slide softly against skin. The sound fades instantly. The elder's breathing changes, becoming slightly lighter. Awareness hovers nearby, not entering yet. He remains still, letting the moment arrive on its own terms. Time regains a faint outline, not enough to count, just enough to suggest progression. The night has not ended, but it has begun to release its hold. Outside, a bird shifts position on a branch, feathers rustling softly. The sound does not reach the cave clearly, but its vibration carries through the ground faintly, a whisper rather than a call. Inside, the group remains held in shared stillness. No one moves with intention. No one dreams deeply anymore. Rest transitions toward wakefulness gradually, the way it is meant to. The embers finally dim to near darkness, their job complete. Heat lingers without light, stored in stone, in fur, in bodies pressed close. A hunter's hand loosens, fingers uncurling fully for the first time since sleep began. Muscles release their last remnants of tension. The cave breathes slowly, air cycling in and out, drawing in the earliest hint of morning without announcing it. The elder's eyes flutter briefly, then remain closed. Waking is coming, but it does not need to be rushed. The land outside will wait. Darkness still fills the cave, but it no longer feels endless. It feels transitional, a passage rather than a destination. Outside, the horizon brightens another fraction, unseen and uncelebrated. Inside, rest continues, deep and gentle, bodies suspended in the quiet certainty that when waking arrives, it will do so softly, just as it always has, without demand, without urgency, carried in on the same slow breath that has guided humans from night into day since the very beginning. The first true sign of morning arrives not as light, but as decision, a subtle internal shift where the body chooses wakefulness without being told, where rest loosens its grip because it has completed its work. A breath deepens, then steadies, then shortens slightly, preparing muscles that have not moved for hours to remember themselves again. The elder opens his eyes slowly, not startled, not alert, simply present. Darkness still fills the cave, but it is no longer absolute. Shapes exist now, vague outlines of familiar forms, the gentle rise and fall of sleeping chests, the low curve of stone walls that have held countless mornings like this one. He does not move yet. He listens. The cave answers with quiet certainty. No alarm, no danger, only breathing, soft fabric-like sounds of fur against skin, and the far-off murmur of a world preparing itself beyond stone. He closes his eyes again, briefly, letting wakefulness settle rather than surge. Mornings are not rushed here, they unfold. Somewhere nearby, a woman shifts, her arm sliding from beneath a child who remains asleep, undisturbed. She adjusts instinctively, careful without conscious thought, making space while keeping warmth close. A young hunter's leg twitches once, memory of movement echoing from sleep, then stills. His hand tightens briefly around nothing, then relaxes. The cave holds the moment like a held breath. Outside, the land has begun to change color, though the cave remains dark. The sky carries faint layers now, deep blue easing toward gray, gray edging toward pale. The cold retreats slightly, enough to be felt by stone first, then air. Inside, the fire watcher stirs, chin lifting a fraction as his body registers time. He does not open his eyes yet. He does not need to. The elder finally sits up slowly, careful not to disturb anyone. His joints complain softly, familiar and unremarkable. Age speaks in stiffness, not pain. He waits for it to pass. He looks toward the fire pit, reading its state by instinct rather than sight. Embers are nearly gone. The night has ended properly. He reaches for a small bundle of dry grass, placed there intentionally the evening before. Planning always extends forward here, quietly, without ceremony. He adds the grass gently, shielding it with his hand as he strikes stone to stone, coaxing a spark rather than demanding one. The spark catches, a glow returns, small but purposeful. Light creeps outward slowly, revealing shapes more clearly now. Stone texture, four patterns, tools resting where they were placed, everything where it should be. The fire watcher opens his eyes at last, sees the flame, and nods once, responsibility acknowledged and released. He shifts onto his side and settles again, allowed a little more rest now. A child blinks awake, confused for a moment, then calm. Morning has arrived, but gently. The child watches the fire grow, says nothing, absorbs warmth. The elder feeds the flame gradually, never rushing. Fire is a partner, not a servant. Others begin to wake one by one, not all at once, not loudly. A stretch here, a quiet yawn there. Bodies rising into sitting positions slowly, furs slipping down shoulders, hands rubbing faces. No one speaks yet, words come later. The cave fills with soft movement sounds, the rustle of grass mats being rolled slightly, the dull thud of a tool being repositioned, the faint scrape of stone against stone as someone checks an edge. Outside, light reaches the cave mouth at last, not entering fully, just touching the threshold, marking the boundary between shelter and world. The woman who shifted earlier stands now, stretching carefully, arms lifting overhead. Her spine straightens. She breathes deeply, drawing in cool air mixed with smoke. The child beside her sits up fully, hair flattened, eyes wide and curious, already awake in the way only children can be. The elder adds another piece of wood. The fire responds, brightening enough to illuminate faces fully now. Expressions emerge, familiar, neutral, ready. Morning tasks begin forming silently in minds across the cave. Hunting, gathering, repair, preparation. No one announces them, no one assigns them. They exist already, waiting. A young man checks his spear point, running a thumb carefully along its edge, nodding to himself. Another tightens cordage on a handle, twisting fibers with practiced ease. Someone near the back begins grinding dried plants, the rhythmic sound returning, low and steady, the first work of the day begun without fanfare. The cave no longer feels like night. It feels transitional again, shifting toward movement, toward outward focus. The elder finally speaks, his voice low and unhurried, more a signal than a message. Others answer quietly, brief exchanges that establish awareness and readiness without unnecessary detail. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation, colors layering into one another, indifferent to human schedules, yet perfectly aligned with them. A hunter moves toward the entrance, stopping just short of leaving, adjusting his clothing, checking the air, listening. Inside, the fire burns steadily now, fully awake. The child rises and wanders closer to the light, sitting cross-legged near the warmth, watching everything, learning simply by being present. Morning has arrived completely, not announced by sound or spectacle, but by alignment, by bodies and world agreeing that it is time. The cave, which held rest and safety through darkness, now releases its people gently back into the flow of the day, unchanged, reliable, ready to receive them again when night inevitably returns. The day does not need to be told in detail because it unfolds the way it always has, through movement and effort and small decisions made correctly enough to keep everyone alive. And by the time the sun lowers again, the band returns carrying the quiet weight of another completed cycle, feet sore, hands marked with dirt and work, stomachs empty in a way that promises satisfaction rather than hunger. The cave receives them without comment. The fire is rebuilt with the same practiced care, flame rising slowly, never rushed, smoke finding its familiar path upward and out. Tools are placed down where hands remember them being needed again. Meat is shared without counting. Plants are divided without debate. No one keeps score. As evening settles, the cave fills again with the gentle noise of togetherness, not conversation exactly, but presence made audible through small sounds, a scrape of stone, a shift of posture, a quiet exhale that signals safety. The elder watches the fire as he always does, not because it needs watching, but because attention itself is part of the ritual. Fire has a way of responding to neglect. Children drift closer to warmth, their energy spent, curiosity temporarily satisfied. One leans against a knee. Another traces lines in the dust with a stick, drawing shapes that mean nothing and everything at once. Stories begin, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to pass knowledge forward without breaking the calm. Words float through the cave like smoke, settling where they are needed, forgotten where they are not. Outside, darkness gathers again, patient and familiar. Inside, the fire becomes the center of the world once more. Bodies relax, muscles release. The urgency of daylight dissolves into the softer purpose of rest. The fire burns lower as wood is arranged carefully for the night. Someone checks the entrance. Someone else shifts bedding closer to warmth. Everything happens in the correct order without being spoken aloud. The cave returns to its nighttime shape. Breathing slows, conversations thin, children disappear beneath furs one by one. Adults follow more gradually, finishing small tasks, checking edges, tightening knots, preparing tomorrow before allowing sleep to take them. The elder settles onto his mat last, as he often does, not from duty but habit. He listens to the cave one more time. It answers correctly. The fire watcher takes position, not fully awake, not fully asleep, hovering in the space where awareness lingers lightly. Darkness deepens. Outside, animals move. Inside, humans rest. The boundary holds. The fire becomes embers. The embers become glow. The glow becomes memory. Breathing layers again, slower now, deeper, heavier. The cave fills with sleep like water filling a basin, evenly, completely. Time loosens its grip. Dreams come quietly, built from the day just lived, from hands on stone, from feet on earth, from faces seen by firelight. No noise intrudes, no future presses in. The night holds. Hours pass without being counted. The fire pulses faintly, a steady heartbeat against stone. The cave remains unchanged, reliable, ancient. Bodies shift occasionally, adjusting to warmth, to closeness, to comfort. A child murmurs once, then stills. Outside, the world continues its rhythms without concern for the sleeping humans within. Wind moves, clouds pass, stars turn. Inside, nothing is required. Eventually, far beyond awareness, the sky will begin its slow change again. But that belongs to another cycle, another waking, another fire. For now, rest is complete. The cave holds its people as it has for generations, stone remembering every breath, every story, every night survived. The fire remains, reduced but alive, the same fire that has carried humanity through darkness since the beginning. And within that glow, humans sleep, not thinking about survival, not thinking about history, simply existing as they were always meant to, warm, together, and safe, while the long, unbroken story of their kind continues quietly, one breath at a time, into the endless night beyond the cave walls.